Honestly, what makes me happy is seeing the other people on the floor working happy. As long as they're not stressed out, there's no reason for me to be stressed out. Here we manufacture 1 ml syringes, 3 ml, 5 ml, and 10 ml, along with a lot of other specialty products. It gives you a sense of importance, knowing that people are depending on this. It's not just a luxury product that people can do without. This is something that people need. My name is Lucien Franciat. I am the OSS, Operational Support Specialist, in the molding department here at Canaan BD. I went to Naugatuck Valley, right there in Waterbury Community College, and studied aviation science. I had a few years in there, was a manager up at BDL. It didn't last long. I had lost my aunt in 9/11, and I thought that I could handle that field and stick with it, but I had to kind of recreate myself, and somehow through the journey of jobs, I discovered this from doing work for another person who worked here. And they were like, I really like the way you work. They said, you would fit in. I learned a lot here and had opportunities handed to me, and I didn't waste it. I have to know a little bit of everything to the best of my ability to just guide everyone in the right direction. If we have quality issues, I'm there analyzing it, looking at the different percentages of requalification that's acceptable per FDA. We have machines running 24/7. Things can go wrong 24/7. But we always have somebody available to jump on it, and we'll resolve whatever issue or start troubleshooting whatever issue we have at hand. We work together, and the day shift tries to set up nights as good as they can. We have people here that make it happen, and some people come in every day of the week, nights. Some people come in every day of the week, days, nonstop. Can't make enough of this stuff. If you don't mind working really, really hard, then it'll pay off. This is one place that it will pay off, but you have to be consistent. When the pandemic hit, the government called for X amount of product. We're here on standby, ready to. Okay, not me. I'm good. Thank you. So, and when that happened, everybody just ready for that big, massive order. When it started, we were pumping product out 24/7. We do not shut down. I've been working nights for about 3 of my almost 5 years here. I have some family members who are doctors. It makes me feel good when they tell me that they get the products from here. That alone really feels good.
I think that it's important for people to realize that you can be a professional and live in Litchfield County, that you don't have to travel to New York or to Boston to be these people that you want to be. Just the fact that this college is here and continuously is ranked in the top in the nation for best community colleges, it's important for people to even know that that exists here so that you can have that passion for being an outdoorsy person and loving this environment, but still get the education and give back to the community that you're working in. My name is Joanna Sear. I am an assistant professor in nursing here at Northwestern Connecticut Community College. I have a degree in exercise science. I went to Ithaca College. When I was doing my internship at St. Francis, I decided that I wanted to go back to nursing school, so I did an accelerated bachelor's program at University of Southern Maine. I found nursing just opened up so many doors that I actually never went back to exercise science. I went to Sacred Heart and got my master's, and then I just this past May finished my doctorate out of Regis College in Massachusetts. I have to be really creative in the classroom, so I often try to bring in patient scenarios and we can kind of talk through them and bring the disease process in, because it's really important that we teach conceptually instead of taking each disease process and siloing it down, because then students aren't able to put all those pieces together. You know, I think that's the important thing to think about in the community college environment is that everybody has a story that they're bringing to the classroom. Everybody has a reason why they're going into healthcare. They have a reason why they're here. Some of them have been respiratory therapists and now they're having a career change. Other people are in their 40s, their 50s, looking for that midlife change. And I think it's important to recognize those stories. But we do have a lot of people that are younger that, you know, they were bartenders and now they're switching to be nurses. It's a little harder because they haven't worked in that medical environment, but that's where the nurses at Charlotte really kind of embrace having the students there and really teaching them everything that they know. And that's the other positive thing with so many of our graduates working at Charlotte. They know what it's like to go through the program and they really pick our students up to really give them that full experience. I think to be the best educator, you still have to be immersed in that clinical environment to know what the newest evidence-based practice is. I do get some bedside care when I work up at Hotchkiss as a per diem nurse, or I do a little bit of home care right now. In the past, most of my experience was emergency medicine. I have a lot of stories to share with the students to kind of keep them engaged. Like I can tell when their faces are kind of going blank, okay, can I pull out a good story to kind of re-engage them and make it feel real? I think that's the thing about healthcare is there's not always a direct path. I think it's very important for people to be passionate and to go into something that they love doing every day so that they don't dread going to work. There's so many places to be employed as a nurse. Like you could work in a school system. I work at Camp Jewel over the summer. I work at a high school. Whether you want pediatrics or adults, there's really something for everybody. And you just kind of have to experience what's out there. Be vocal, be your best advocate, and really kind of never give up on your dreams.
I have to say that the best part of my day is when I'm in the classroom, and whatever that classroom looks like, whether it's a rehearsal on stage or whether it's in our Bach gallery actually teaching a class. Working with especially kind of high school kids in the summertime who are doing internships or have jobs here, it's so cool because they're not only having fun, but I know for a fact that they are building these skills that they will use for the rest of their lives. To me, of course, it's important to have theater education in my hometown and where I grew up. I was a full-time actor for over a decade. Did national tours, I did a lot of theater in New York, I did off-Broadway, I did Sheer Madness at the Kennedy Center. I had a great time. I worked at regional theaters all over the place, this one included. I didn't always know that I wanted to be an educator. I was bitten by the theater bug like early on. When I was in 5th grade, I got cast in a play here. This is the space where I learned the magic of theater. This is the space where I was a 16-year-old and saw that you could actually have a career in this business. When I was 18, I was in an original musical called Off the Wall that Michael Berkeley wrote. Off the Wall was about the story of Humpty Dumpty, and I played Humpty Dumpty. You know, at the age of 18, I was also coming out as a gay man, and I remember, without sounding too cheesy, I remember feeling like Humpty Dumpty, like in terms of discovering my identity and it being the late 90s and me feeling comfortable in my own skin. The theme song of the show was literally called Be Yourself, and that's what I sang. And so as I sat there in that role, performing those lyrics and that story, I felt like the theater, the Sharon Playhouse, put me back together again. There are many small towns across the country, but there is something unparalleled in this little pocket of Connecticut up here in the Northwest Hills. There's theater, there's museums, there's concerts. My sister started having kids and it was like, yeah, this is where I want to be. This is home. There's a lot of grunt work in the theater world. Equipment, materials, set building, furniture, props, costumes, but the ends always justify the means. And I mean that. Like for me in my life at almost 40 years old, the hard work always pays off, because then you have a product and the audience gets to come in and see something on stage and it's all worth it. device, you gesture to the left, so...
Oh, we changed it?
Or what is it, to the right first? Sorry, to the right.
I actually wanted to be a massage therapist when I was a senior, and I did. I went to school right after high school, and I did that for 10 years. But unfortunately, it was not that profitable, only because of the 2008 recession. It wasn't exactly what I wanted. But I knew I wanted to work with my hands, and I've always been around carpenters and things like that. My grandfather was a carpenter, my dad was a carpenter. I had a friend that kind of was a jack of all trades, and my mom bought this really old house built in 1900, and it needed electrical updating. I actually just said to him, hey, if you're willing to do this, I'm willing to actually do whatever you need me to do. I'll go in that hole, I'll go in the attic, I'll do whatever. So we did that, and we renovated our whole house, and that was it. That's what I wanted to do. That just sparked my interest, pun intended. And so I went to Porter and Chester. It was an 18-month program of night classes because I worked during the day. When you graduate from school, there is still an apprenticeship program to go through. So 4 years, 8,000 hours, you can't do it any faster than that. That was actually hard for me to find a job because unfortunately it's a boys' club and nobody wanted to hire me because I was a girl. Women in trades in general are few and far between. Women in electrical are much more rare. I've met 2 in my experience, and I think more rare is plumbers. I have not met a woman plumber yet. I hope to one day, because I'm all for it. Like, everybody should be represented out there. The world of trades is changing towards more equal employment, just generally anybody, everybody. But I think that it has a lot to do with people's perspective. That women are weaker or not as smart or whatever their ridiculous thing is. But I think as the next generation comes up, it's changing. An important aspect of service is also learning from people that know how to fix old things, fix things that they don't make anymore, or troubleshooting. Troubleshooting is a big part of the job that you don't really learn in school. And I've had some amazing teachers. I have lived in Winsted for the last 5 years. I love it here. The Northwest Corner has a really cool community. It's very tight-knit, it's very neighborly, it's very welcoming, but it's also just filled with everyday Joe kind of people. It's filled with blue collar, there's a good amount of white collar people as well, but it's mostly people that have worked with their hands and know what that's like. And I think there's a different understanding to other people that have to work with their hands and the appreciation that we all have for each other. I think anybody that wants to get in the trades, as long as they're mechanically inclined or are very ambitious, they should do it. Just jump right in, because there aren't enough people in the trades. It's amazing to work with your hands. It's such a gratifying feeling. You always need an electrician, you always need plumbers, you always need carpenters. You own your own house one day, or you own your own car, and you know how to work on it yourself. And it's so rewarding.
It's really just about being driven and creating goals, and especially in the climate that we're in now with COVID, everyone is understaffed. If you have it in your mind and this is a passion for you, just reach out. Just, I don't know, make a plan for yourself. When you go into restaurants, as long as you show that you're dedicated and hardworking, I think then they'd be more prone to listening to your ideas if you want to be creative in a different way there. My name is Julia Lazar and I work at the Trinity Retreat Center. I went to Johnson & Wales University. I graduated college and I potentially wanted to go out to Colorado because I had done an internship there, and I just decided to look for jobs in the area, obviously trying to make money as quickly as possible after coming out of college. And this area is beautiful, so I wasn't upset about it, and quickly got this job. I just found it on Indeed, and I have a ton of creative control, so much so where I was a little bit out of my comfort zone upon starting off, because I am in charge of people that are older than me, which obviously is a little intimidating just coming right out of college, but because everyone is so sweet on this team, it was easy for me to become comfortable. You know, you work hard, and obviously I became more sure of myself over time. It's literally my dream job. I get to do every single thing I love and like wanted to do in the future, and I got to do it coming right out of college. I get to be creative and make up menus every single week for all different types of cuisines. It's been awesome. Trinity Retreat Center is owned by Trinity Wall Street, which is a very large Episcopal church in Manhattan. They reach out and have a global presence as well as national. Anyone that comes to this property as a group, they have to be educational, a nonprofit group, or a religious group. So even though we're an Episcopal church, we have all religions come here. We have a Jewish group coming up soon. We've had a Buddhist group in the past. There's animals here. We have our own farm, so everything's farm to table. We try to source all the food locally as much as possible. And it's just like a big family here. Like there's such a beautiful sense of community between our team, like between the staff, but then also the people that come to the retreat center. It's just a really beautiful place to work. Over this span of time with COVID, because we were closed here, we did create relationships with 5 different towns to be donating food to them. So me and a few members of my team would come in every week and cook. At the beginning, we were only doing like 100, and then we got up to 500 one week. So it depended on the need. Luckily, Canaan, for example, they didn't need it after a certain period of time, which is great because that means that people are getting back to work and they don't need that extra help. But we are still helping Torrington and Bantam at this time, and happy to help people as much as they need it. It helps my personal growth, as I said, just being more comfortable being in a management position, as well as forcing me to be more organized and delegating to people. That's a huge thing because you know you can do a job, right? But now the challenge is me really making my team work together in a smart way. So that's something I'm just continuously working on, and feel blessed to work with the people that I do that are open to me, and we're growing together.
Robots replacing people was something that was covered in school quite a bit, like how to tactfully, appropriately deal with that, because I do replace people's jobs. There's not a lack of a need for skilled labor. My hope is to have people doing tasks that are much more people specific and let me automate the other simple stuff. But I would love to see more of the lower cost items made here with automation. We can maintain a higher standard of living and a higher product quality, as well as keep the cost low. If more of that kind of work could come here, as in this area, Torrington and the surrounding region, northwest corner, that would be even greater. I grew up in Bloomfield, just outside of Hartford. I went to school at Central Connecticut State University, the automation program. One of the teachers in that program recommended me here. I'm a manufacturing engineer here at Sites. My specific skill set is automation. My job predominantly involves designing, engineering, integration, and implementation. We do special engineered resins and custom gearing. Myself, my coworker, the machine shop or outside vendors will produce the individual components, and then I will do the assembly and programming. People say, I want this to happen. I say, no problem. So I'll use CAD software to come up with a design. So yes, I learned some things, but it is what I've learned here from the older machinists and older engineers. That's really, I think, what has brought me forward, moved me to where I am now. Being an engineer is rewarding and frustrating, but life is short, time is precious, so enjoy what you do. Having the experienced engineers and machinists who are simply willing to share their time and knowledge, having coworkers that you get along with and have a great time, not only working, but having a joke with, at work. Those two elements really contribute to my desire to remain here. It is fantastic working with people who possess the skill and ability that I can only dream of attaining. I think that simply having a manufacturing facility that is profitable, offering jobs, and producing high quality products is good for any area. Torrington's just lucky to have sites here.
I do think that teaching reading and writing is very important. I would have a hard time picking which one is more important. I think for the sake of the students, reading like for them gaining their own knowledge. But I feel like for mental health, I think writing is really important. Most of my lessons about life came from my ELA classes. My lessons about how people face adversity or how people deal with grief, teaching the kids how to agree or disagree appropriately is like a big part of the classroom. The kids are amazing at sharing their perspectives in a way that doesn't belittle anybody else's. I went to Eastern Connecticut State University. I got a BA in English, and then I went to University of New Haven and got my master's in elementary ed. So I actually am originally from Middletown, and then for a long time I worked in Norwich, and I lived in Stonington, so I lived way down at the shore. I used to say that the shore was the most beautiful area, but the Northwest is by far the most beautiful area of Connecticut. People are just so helpful and so excited. The first day that I came, Paula Rogers, who was the woman who was in here before, this was her room for 30 years, she drove me around Falls Village and showed me where all of the kids lived and where the pool was. And I just remember thinking, like, that would never happen somewhere else. I'd probably never even meet the teacher I was replacing, so I really liked that. ELA is a really important subject as far as being a lifelong learner and also growing your understanding of humanity. I'm trying to open the students' eyes to different perspectives has been wonderful, and all of the students and families are really supportive of change and hearing other people's perspectives. A lot of the parents have been so excited because they have new books to read too. I like the growth and watching kids really become who they are, like grow into their identity. I think those are the great years. Letting them do that, like really giving them the space to be who they are and being very careful about how I respond to who they are. If you were interested in teaching, I would say, like, really know your why. Like, really know, getting into teaching, what your bigger picture is, because I think you can get very lost in the daily content or the daily lesson planning. And sometimes, I've had that where a year has gone by and I'm like, what was my bigger picture here for the kids? Like, what did I want them to take away? I think when you know your why, all of your work comes out of that place. So your daily lesson plans line up with that. So I feel like going into education, you have to know what you're trying to give to students, besides just an equation or, a figurative language, or you have to know like what you want them to come away feeling from your class.
I've updated that in our system, so we should be able to do that for you, okay? Good connecting with you. Looking forward to working together. My pleasure. Bye. Craft beer has made beer like personal, where it used to be this very rigid space. I think when we opened in 2015, we were the 25th or something brewery in the state. Now there's over 100. We're a small brewery, but I would love to be able to have this be a place where people have careers. I grew up in New Jersey, so kind of northern Jersey, in a town called Montville. I studied philosophy in college, thought about going to law school, ended up working in a small bank. I used to tell my grandparents, who were bakers, that I wanted to open up their bakery as a kid, and that I think the brewery in a lot of ways is like a contemporary version of like wanting to reopen their bakery. David, who's one of my partners, we met playing Ultimate in the city, so I was always talking his ear off. I want to open up a brewery. He was looking to start a farm, and then we started talking about doing a farm and a brewery, and then the distillery came into it. The property was, before we moved on to it, a dairy farm. It sounds really corny, but like the vision, or like you saw the red barns turning into a brewery, like in your head, the wheels start turning. My partners David and John and Yoni and Noah and I started Kent Falls and Never Sing Spirits. I'm managing the sales and distribution, supply chain sourcing, and working with local maltsters and managing those relationships. There's a big learning curve. There's a lot of engineering and mechanics and electrical and plumbing, and it involves everything: taxes, legal, distribution channels, contracts, supply chains, and that's not even involved in the brewing itself. There's always, we'll do that ourselves, and then there's the, let's call it professional. We're really lucky to be in a community where there are a lot of tradespeople, and they're invaluable to our operation and lots of businesses and people's livelihoods out here. I think we've gotten to a point in the 6 years where we couldn't make all the beer we do without distribution, and we couldn't distribute without being able to make all that beer. So you have to have a symbiosis. It makes the beer more rewarding when you can bring it to somebody who grew it and malted it and not just fulfilled an order. There's a lot of great things to be said about fulfilling orders, but the real connections along the way is part of what makes it so enjoyable.
When I was a kid, I was interested in helping people, helping animals, helping everybody. I had an aunt who was in the nursing profession, and just the things that she would describe, and I would go to her work every once in a while and I would see what she kind of did. I graduate high school, and people expect you to have kind of like what you want to do right out of high school, which I think is a pretty big burden to put somebody on who's 18. I did know that I wanted to pursue nursing, and so I wound up at Naugatuck Valley. And then from there, I did like a year of finishing up the rest of my prerequisites, and then I applied to the program. During both years, you did clinical and you did on-site learning. When I was in school, I knew I wanted either emergency room or ICU. My manager, Brian, gave me a call, said, "Hey, let's do an interview." I said, "Sure." And then lo and behold, I got the job, and I started with Torrington itself is a change. It's quieter than I'm used to. I grew up in the valley. When I come in, I get my stethoscope, my pens, my scissors. Because I work 12 hours, I'm usually put in either fast track or sometimes the behavioral health area. But fast track is very fast paced. It's pretty hectic. It involves a lot of time management, a lot of prioritization. Every day is different. Each shift is different. That's what I, admire about the emergency department. The consistency lies in the fact that it's always busy. You always have something to do. The coworkers that I have here, I think it's unique because, we take care of people in their final moments. I've asked my mentors here, how do you deal with these things? Because it can be hard to deal with somebody who's passing away or who has passed away, and then the family members come in and, there are a lot of people who have been doing this for a while. There are people like me who have been doing this for a shorter amount of time. So it's very tough. It's very hard. But my coworkers are amazing. We kind of bond through the trauma. I admire a lot of my coworkers for how they handle things and the job that they do. I came to this job because I wanted to learn. Every day that I come in, I'm learning something new, and that's very fulfilling to me because that's what I want. I want to know more, I want to grow. I am going to go back to school to get my bachelor's because right now I have an associate's, but the learning never stops. There are people who've been doing this for years and years and years, and they always mention that they're still learning. A lot of people will say that they learn something new every day. To think that I could be doing this 10, 15 years from now and still be learning is pretty awesome.
Buying or selling a house can be a pretty stressful experience, so whatever I can do to help that. And I love getting up every day and doing what I can to relieve some stress. I feel good if I'm able to do that. My name is Matt McElhone. I'm a realtor with William Pitt Sotheby's International Realty. I'm local, born and raised in Warren, right down the road. My father owns a drilling and blasting company, so I grew up doing that. I got to work on a bunch of local Litchfield County estates, which kind of jump-started my interest in real estate just by being on those properties. Worked for him for 5 years before I went to college, and then I was pretty local and I went down to Danbury to WestCon. I got a bachelor's degree in business management. I knew I wanted to do something in business, but it wasn't until my senior year that I figured out real estate was what I wanted to get into. There's a lot of days I worked for my dad in the middle of summer when it was 100 degrees, lugging around boxes of dynamite. And while I'm not doing that anymore, it just taught me to have perseverance and grit and just have the attitude that you got to do whatever it takes just to get the job done and get through the day. I was 22 when I started, very green and new to the business, and worked here as an admin. I started to learn the business a bit. And in the same time, I took my real estate exam. And then 3 years ago now, I've been on the sales side of things. Picking up your phone is one of the most important things as a realtor. You want to be somebody that people can trust if there's an issue. You know, the work ethic is very strong in the Northwest corner. There's a lot of blue-collar people here who are the backbone of our community. And we have a lot of people who come from out of state, from New York and Boston and other cities, and they have the same work ethic too. I've been more than happy here in my first few years. Our staff is great, the agents I work with are great, and Sotheby's offers so much as a brokerage to its clients that I can't see myself ever leaving to go to another brokerage.
Growing up in Torrington, I think a lot of people have an idea that they want to get out of Torrington. I love kind of the hometown feel of working here and knowing there's a lot of new organizations coming into town, new restaurants, new coffee trucks, and it's really cool to see people actually reinvesting in this community. I feel a sense of pride and also obligation to Northwest Connecticut and specifically kind of the Torrington area because this is where I came from. I think there is definitely a stigma around, going into a manufacturing facility. You think it's hard labor and it's dirty or something along those lines. We're developing materials that are truly best in class, and it's all coming from this factory here in Torrington. I went to Torrington Public Schools for my entire school career. For college, I went off to a liberal arts school in Massachusetts. And when I graduated with a degree in biology, and I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I had moved home 1 mile up the road from here at Dymax. As I started researching what Dymax actually did, I thought it was so cool that I was right around the corner from my house, and it seemed like a good place to get my feet wet in the corporate world. My typical day is not very typical, which is actually why I like what I do. I spend a lot of time working with our cross-functional team here based in North America, work really closely with our group in the quality department, research and development, the application engineering team, as well as things like our planning and supply chain. But I also get to work really closely with our entities both in Asia and Europe. The majority of our products, both equipment and adhesive, are all manufactured here. And I think it's so awesome to be able to see that connection where Torrington, Connecticut is touching the lives of all of these different companies across many different industries. I love working here for many different reasons, but at the end of the day, I think it's really standing behind the products that we produce. And we know that those products are going into critical medical devices. They are going on aerospace and defense components. Those are going into consumer automotive electronic devices. You kind of nerd out a little bit about what you do every day because it's exciting to see it in practice.
Millennials want to be doing work or having a job that has meaning, that has significance and importance to them, that it's not just crunching numbers or pushing buttons. It's something that they personally connect with. I graduated from Housatonic Valley Regional High School in 2002. My first year, I actually went to American University in Washington, D.C., but then I transferred to Cornell University, and that's where I finished my college degree. I, at that point, had acknowledged that some kind of agricultural component was a really important part of what I did, because that was what my roots were. That's what my foundation is, growing up on a dairy farm. And so I did a lot of different things. I worked for a congresswoman. I worked for a buy local campaign with Yukon Extension. So I had a lot of different jobs before I finally decided that I was ready to put both my feet down here in my family's business. You can be involved in farming and agriculture and not be putting on muck boots every day. That there is an opportunity for you to do genetics or nutrition or biology. Like, working is not always dirty work. I think being able to break stereotypes, to be a young female that decided to come back onto a dairy farm. It felt like, as a young woman that went and pursued an Ivy League education, like it just seemed status-wise, I needed to leave. I needed to kind of blend in with the other accomplished people and go find a job in a city. Now, wearing my more mature and 36-year-old hat, I think that the best thing I could have done was to leave so that I wanted to come back.